Witch hunting was never about theology. It was history's most effective hostile takeover of private property. The Inquisition was a high-margin asset redistribution scheme hidden behind a cloud of incense. The Pope realized that selling salvation was slow, but seizing entire estates was lightning fast. The Holy See faced a massive liquidity crisis and needed a new stream of aggressive revenue. I am the chief auditor, and today we audit the Vatican's most profitable business model. Welcome to Empire Audits. Please try not to get burned by the fiscal truth, interns. Hollywood says the witch hunts were about superstitions and old women in the dark woods. The spreadsheets say the witch hunts were about wealthy widows with prime urban real estate. If the local budget had a deficit, the Holy Office found a high-net-worth heretic nearby. A witchcraft accusation was a perfect legal loophole for total and permanent asset forfeiture. The Church created a legal framework where the burden of proof was mathematically impossible to meet. Once the audit of the soul began, the state froze all personal bank accounts immediately. The victim had to pay for their own torture, their own trial, and their own execution. Inquisitors billed the victim's family for the daily maintenance of the prisoner in a dark cell. They charged extra for the specialized tools used to extract the necessary corporate secrets. The Inquisition invented the ultimate self-funding SaaS, salvation as a service, with a massive profit margin. Let us audit the supply chain of fear that powered the medieval European economy. The medieval legal proceedings were essentially a mandatory and highly violent corporate restructuring process. First, they hired professional local informants on a strictly incentivized commission basis. These professional informants scoured the local market for vulnerable high-net-worth individuals. If a wealthy widow owned a prime bakery, she was instantly labeled a prime demonic suspect. The Inquisition tribunal functioned exactly like a modern predatory private equity firm. They identified a profitable asset, launched a hostile takeover, and literally liquidated the management. The dark medieval torture chamber was essentially just an aggressive corporate negotiation room. Let us review the itemized invoice of a standard medieval corporate execution. The local executioner charged a fixed consulting fee for his violent anatomical expertise. The victim's estate was systematically billed for the execution ropes, iron chains, and dry straw. They even charged the grieving family for the executioner's travel expenses and his lavish lunch. This clever accounting trick ensured that the tribunal operated with absolutely zero overhead costs. Every single execution generated pure, unadulterated profit for the completely corrupt local diocese. This financial structure created a terrifying and highly effective corporate incentive program. The more people they burned, the higher the quarterly dividend payouts soared for the elites. Local bishops aggressively used this new revenue stream to build massive Gothic cathedrals. They effectively financed beautiful Renaissance architecture entirely with the ashes of the urban middle class. The system was brilliant because it completely eliminated all financial risk for the prosecuting auditors. If the accused was somehow found innocent, they were still left completely and utterly bankrupt. The excessive trial fees alone were more than enough to drain a merchant's entire life savings. But innocence was statistically rare because the business model strictly demanded lucrative guilty verdicts. To maximize profits, the auditors desperately needed to expand their targeted customer base. They introduced the legal concept of inherited guilt to seize lucrative generational wealth. If a mother was convicted, her children were legally disinherited and immediately evicted. The church ruthlessly confiscated the family home, the business inventory, and the agricultural land. The innocent orphans were thrown into the muddy streets without a single copper coin. This legal loophole allowed the Holy Office to permanently wipe out entire bloodlines of commercial competitors. Secular lords absolutely loved this profitable system and eagerly partnered with the religious tribunals. The local duke usually took a mandatory 30% cut of the newly liquidated assets. It was a medieval joint venture built entirely upon the fragile foundation of human combustion. Some European cities became completely addicted to this extremely dark and violent revenue stream. The town of Bamberg transformed its entire economy into a massive industrialized witch-hunting factory. They built a specialized prison equipped with the absolute latest physical interrogation technology. It was a literal slaughterhouse specifically designed to extract confessions and lucrative property deeds. The Bamberg executives violently burned the mayor, the city councillors, and the richest merchants. They seized millions of gold florins to urgently balance their severely mismanaged municipal budgets. But every aggressive Ponzi scheme eventually runs out of gullible new capital investors. The Inquisition's financial bubble was absolutely destined for a violently corrective market crash. The local tribunals simply ran out of wealthy urban widows to brutally liquidate. The urban middle class was completely financially exhausted and physically decimated by the relentless audits. Driven by sheer unadulterated greed, the arrogant auditors made a totally fatal corporate error. They started issuing aggressive legal subpoenas to the previously untouchable feudal military nobility. They foolishly tried to completely confiscate the stone castles of the armed military elite. This is exactly where the hostile takeover finally hit a massive legal brick wall. Heavily armed kings do not appreciate unauthorized financial audits of their sovereign territory. The secular monarchs quickly realized the church was aggressively stealing their primary tax base. You simply cannot collect royal property taxes from a pile of smoldering human ash. The state heavily stepped in and forcefully deregulated the entire witch-hunting industry. Secular supreme courts permanently stripped the religious tribunals of their lucrative asset forfeiture powers. Without the massive financial incentive, the supernatural demonic threat miraculously vanished almost overnight. When the corporate profit margins hit zero, the imaginary demons simply stopped appearing. The grand theological crusade was immediately cancelled due to a severe lack of funding. The Inquisition was humiliatingly relegated to burning illegal books instead of incredibly wealthy bankers. It was the ultimate historical proof that cold money always dictates supposed absolute morality. The medieval economy brilliantly turned raw human fear into a highly liquid tradable commodity. The church operated the most ruthlessly effective asset management firm in all human history. Class is officially dismissed, you incredibly miserable and utterly expendable corporate interns. I want you to aggressively audit your own pathetic and miserable modern daily existence. Which modern corporate monopoly aggressively uses manufactured fear to completely drain your bank account? Is it the bloated healthcare industry or the entirely predatory medical insurance market. Defend your pathetic little financial thesis in the digital comments section down below. Smash the subscribe button immediately to join the Bureau's permanent and highly classified payroll. If you dare refuse, I will personally audit your entire digital browser history.